Talking about here on my channel right now. It's all about Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively's.
Just when it seemed like Blake Lively's legal strategy couldn't sink any lower, her team pulled a move so reckless, so manipulative, that it exposed the entire game they've been playing from the start. In one of the most outrageous filings in this case so far, Blake's lawyers attempted to invoke Federal Rule of Evidence 412, better known as the Rape Shield Law. This law exists for one reason and one reason only: to protect actual survivors of sexual assault from being humiliated, re-traumatized, or discredited in court based on their sexual history. It is one of the most serious protections in the legal system. And Blake Lively tried to use it as a shield against basic questioning. Let's be absolutely clear, because this matters. Blake Lively has never accused Justin Baldoni of rape. She has never accused him of sexual assault. She has never claimed physical sexual abuse. Not once. So why is her legal team invoking a law designed specifically for sexual assault survivors? Because they're not trying to win on facts. They're trying to win on implication. They want the headlines. They want the public to see phrases like rape shield and assume something horrific happened, even though the filings themselves never make that claim. It's narrative manipulation at its most dangerous. This isn't about legal protection. This is about emotional leverage. Blake wants sympathy without accountability. She wants outrage without evidence. She wants to trigger public response without ever putting her claims to the test under oath. And that is exactly why this move is so offensive, not just legally, but morally. When a celebrity misuses laws meant to protect real victims, it doesn't just distort one case, it undermines the credibility of survivors who genuinely need those protections. Even the court filings acknowledge the problem. Blake's own history became relevant because of claims she introduced herself. She framed experiences in a way that invited scrutiny. She opened the door. But now that she's under oath, now that questions carry consequences, she wants the court to pretend that door never existed. That's not how truth works. And it's not how justice works. What we're watching isn't courage. It's calculation. Blake is trying to play both victim and aggressor at the same time, hoping the public won't notice the contradiction. But the mask is slipping fast. The more filings come out, the uglier the picture gets. This is what happens when PR strategy replaces honesty. You can't spin your way through sworn testimony, and that brings us to the cover-up phase of this case, because make no mistake, that's exactly what's happening. Blake Lively isn't just fighting a lawsuit. She's fighting to control the narrative at all costs. She's treating the courtroom like a press office and the judge like a crisis manager. This week, she once again begged for more time to block the release of key evidence. Not because of legal complexity, but because those documents threaten the polished image she's spent years building. This wasn't her first request. She already got an extension. And now she wanted more. Why? Timing. She's hoping the holidays dull the media cycle. She's hoping attention fades. She's hoping people stop watching. That's not lawyering. That's manipulation. It's delay by design. Her team continues to black out massive portions of filings, hiding context, blocking names, obscuring exchanges that would make her behavior impossible to defend. But the clock is ticking. Judges don't like being used as shields forever. And while Blake keeps asking for protection, Justin Baldoni's camp has done something very telling. They haven't filed a single sanctions motion. Not one. No complaints about tone. No emotional letters. No attempts to police behavior. They show up, follow orders, and let the record speak, and that record is brutal. Court transcripts reveal depositions so chaotic they look less like legal proceedings and more like reality TV disasters. Blake's lawyers weren't just objecting. They were shouting. Interrupting. Refusing to go on the record. Storming out mid-questioning. At one point, one of them literally yelled, "This is my deposition. We're going off the record," like a child flipping a board game when they start losing. When Brian Friedman tried to make a formal statement, a routine, necessary move to preserve objections for appeal, Blake's side tried to shut him down entirely. They claimed he wasn't allowed to speak because he wasn't the lead attorney. That argument has no basis in law. None. It was pure obstruction. And when that didn't work, things got even uglier. Blake's lawyer suddenly started asking about dead former clients of one of Justin's attorneys. Completely irrelevant. Totally inappropriate. When called out for it, they flipped the script, accused the other side of misconduct, and threatened even more sanctions. This is not confidence. This is panic. This is what desperation looks like when control slips away. And here's the thing Blake didn't count on: court reporters don't miss anything. Every interruption. Every tantrum. Every outburst. It's all there in black and white. Permanent. Unspinnable. This behavior isn't strong advocacy. It's an implosion happening on the record, yet Blake's strategy doesn't stop at legal chaos. She's also trying to weaponize womanhood itself. Her team now claims that any mention of her past relationships or romantic life constitutes harassment.
Crack addict from Boston.
They threaten protective orders if it happens again, even though those topics directly relate to claims Blake herself put into the case. This isn't about safety. It's about optics. Blake knows exactly how this plays in the media. She's counting on people not reading the filings. She wants buzzwords to do the work. She wants the public to connect dots that don't exist. She wants Justin Baldoni's reputation damaged even if the facts don't support it. This isn't justice. It's character assassination by implication, and the most disturbing part is how much special treatment she's received along the way. If you or I behaved like this in court, a judge would shut it down instantly. But Blake? She keeps getting extensions. She keeps getting leniency. She asked to delay the release of sealed documents until December 29th, and the judge didn't just grant it, he gave her even more time than she requested. Again, this is the same judge who's allowed massive redactions. The same judge who's let deadlines slide. The same judge who's permitted Blake to bury Justin Baldoni's team under mountains of procedural paperwork while the public waits for transparency. Meanwhile, regular people dragged into this case were given no mercy at all. They were forced to comply, hand over information, and endure public smears just for speaking online. That's the imbalance. Fame buys patience. Money buys delay. Power buys silence. Blake's legal team is stacked with Hollywood connections, major agencies, deep-pocketed firms. And the system has treated them like VIPs. But fame does not equal innocence. And no judge can protect someone forever when the paper trail keeps growing, because this case was never about justice for Blake Lively. It was always about control. About power. About image. She thought she could bully Justin Baldoni into submission. She thought she could drown the truth in redactions and motions. She thought she could outlast the scrutiny. What she didn't count on was documentation. The transcripts are public. The motions are public. The behavior is undeniable. Coaching witnesses. Blocking questions. Disrupting depositions. Filing sanctions every time control slips. It's all there, and while all of this is unfolding, Ryan Reynolds plays the supportive husband online, smiling on Instagram, pretending the chaos doesn't exist. But let's be honest, he's not separate from this. His money funds it. His name shields it. His silence enables it. Complicity doesn't always look loud. Justin Baldoni, meanwhile, has taken hit after hit and stayed clean. No smear campaigns. No emotional manipulation. Just facts, filed on time. No circus. No tantrums. In the end, this isn't about celebrities. It's about truth versus manipulation. Blake Lively tried to turn the courtroom into a stage, but the performance failed. No red carpets. No magazine covers. Just transcripts, motions, and consequences. The world is finally seeing behind the image, and it isn't flattering. Justice doesn't have a publicist. But the facts don't lie. And this story isn't going away. This isn't the Blake Lively people are used to seeing on red carpets or in glossy rom-com posters, smiling for cameras, perfectly styled, perfectly scripted, perfectly protected. This is a completely different version of her. This is Courtroom Blake. A Blake who isn't in control of the lighting, the edit, or the headlines. A Blake who can't charm her way out of consequences. And what we're watching unfold right now isn't confidence or strength, it's panic. It's desperation. It's a public unraveling happening in real time, inside official court records that were never supposed to see the light of day. Late-night filings hit the docket like a bombshell, and once again, at the center of it all, is Blake Lively begging a federal judge for mercy, for protection, for delay, for anything that might buy her more time before the truth gets exposed. For the 10th time, not the first, not the second, not even the 5th, Blake Lively's legal team rushed in at the last possible moment trying to stop court documents from being unsealed. 10 times. That number alone tells you everything you need to know. This is not standard legal caution. This is not careful lawyering. This is fear. Fear of what the public will see once the black bars come off. Fear of what the transcripts actually say. Fear of how bad the behavior looks when it's not filtered through a PR firm or softened by celebrity media. The deadline was clear. The court laid it out plainly. Objections to unsealing had a timeline. Everyone else followed the rules. Justin Baldoni's team followed the rules. Other parties followed the rules. Blake Lively did not. Instead, her lawyers showed up at the 11th hour asking for yet another extension, claiming they needed more time to object to the public seeing what happened during expert depositions. And that right there is the tell. Because if nothing improper happened, if the depositions were clean, professional, and routine, there would be nothing to hide. You don't fight this hard to keep harmless information sealed. What Blake is trying to delay isn't paperwork. It's exposure. Those documents don't just contain testimony, they contain behavior. Objections on top of objections. Interruptions. Attempts to go off the record. Redactions stacked on redactions. Efforts to silence witnesses mid-questioning. And every time things don't go her way, the same pattern repeats itself. Cry misconduct. File an emergency letter. Run to the judge. Demand sanctions. Rinse. Repeat. This isn't how strong cases are litigated. This is how collapsing narratives are protected. While Blake's legal team plays the victim card over and over, claiming they're being mistreated, bullied, or somehow ambushed, the record tells a different story. A story of obstruction. A story of control. A story of a celebrity who is used to getting her way suddenly realizing that a courtroom doesn't care about fame, brand deals, or public sympathy. And that realization is clearly not sitting well with her, and here's the contrast that matters. While Blake is throwing procedural tantrums, Justin Baldoni has stayed quiet. No dramatic press releases. No emotional letters to the judge. No social media campaigns. His legal team shows up, files on time, follows the court's orders, and asks questions they're legally entitled to ask. That silence isn't weakness. It's discipline. And it's making Blake's behavior stand out even more. When facts stop working in your favor, you weaponize process. When evidence looks bad, you drown the other side in motions. When you can't win on substance, you try to win on exhaustion. And that's exactly where the sanctions come in. For the 10th time, Blake Lively's team has filed yet another sanctions motion against Justin Baldoni's attorneys. At this point, it's starting to look less like legal strategy and more like harassment through paperwork. This time, the accusation isn't about evidence tampering or ethics violations. It's about tone. Literally tone. Her lawyers are complaining that Justin's attorneys were mean during a deposition. That they made rude comments. That they laughed. Yes, laughed, on the record. This is a federal lawsuit, not a high school debate club. Depositions are not tea parties. They are adversarial by nature. Lawyers push. They probe. They challenge. That's the job. But in Blake's world, being challenged apparently qualifies as misconduct. The motion specifically targets two of Justin's attorneys, Brian Friedman and Kevin Fritz, accusing them of intentionally frustrating the deposition of one of Blake's expert witnesses, Nicole Alexander. But when you actually look at the filings, something immediately jumps out. Massive redactions. Huge blacked-out sections. Entire exchanges hidden from view. And once again, the question becomes unavoidable. What is Blake trying to hide? This deposition didn't even happen under rushed or unfair circumstances. It had already been delayed once due to illness. Justin's team still showed up. They still participated. They still followed procedure. But the moment questioning got uncomfortable, the moment answers started to matter, Blake's team slammed on the brakes and cried foul. In their version of events, being firm is harassment. Being persistent is misconduct. And asking follow-up questions is apparently a crime, but let's call this what it actually is. It's a distraction. While Justin Baldoni's team is building a case piece by piece, Blake's team is flooding the court with noise, hoping the real issues get buried under procedural chaos. The goal isn't to win these motions. The goal is to slow everything down so the public never sees the receipts, and those receipts are ugly. Let's talk about what really happened during that now infamous deposition, because it completely destroys the helpless victim narrative Blake is trying to sell. On December 15th, Blake's team presented their expert witness, Nicole Alexander. This wasn't some surprise ambush by Justin's lawyers. This was Blake's own witness, brought in to support her claims. And yet, less than 20 minutes into questioning, her lawyers panicked. According to court filings, Brian Friedman had barely begun before Blake's side started objecting to nearly everything. Interruptions piled up. Answers were cut off. Redactions were demanded in real time. It became impossible to get a clean question and answer on the record. And then came the meltdown. Blake's lawyers claimed the deposition was unfair, not because of anything Justin's team did, but because they themselves were losing control of it. Now here's where it gets truly outrageous. After blocking questions, interrupting testimony, and derailing the deposition, Blake's team turned around and demanded that the court force Nicole Alexander to sit for another hour of questioning, but only by Blake's lawyers. They literally asked the judge to bar Justin's attorneys from asking anything further. Just them. Just control. Just a one-sided record. That is not how depositions work. That is not how fairness works. And that is not how the legal system operates. That's not strategy, that's entitlement. They didn't stop there. They also demanded that Justin's side pay for the additional deposition time as a punishment for alleged bad conduct. Conduct that, based on the record, was largely caused by Blake's own lawyers. This isn't about protecting a witness. It's about silencing one. Because once Nicole Alexander starts answering real questions without interference, the entire case risks collapsing, and Blake knows it. That's why the scrambling is happening behind the scenes. That's why the emergency motions keep coming. That's why the delays keep stacking up. The truth is far uglier than the image she's been selling to the public for years, and the courtroom doesn't care about image. Now let's break down Blake Lively's latest meltdown in more detail, because it reveals a pattern that's impossible to ignore. Her lawyers filed a formal complaint claiming Justin Baldoni's team behaved unprofessionally because someone laughed during a deposition. Not shouted. Not threatened. Laughed. According to the letter sent to the judge, Blake's legal squad accuses the other side of audible crosstalk, insulting comments, and inappropriate laughter on the record. They even claim that Justin's lawyers asked about Blake's romantic and sexual history as if it were some kind of scandalous ambush designed to humiliate her. But what they conveniently leave out is that Blake herself introduced these topics earlier in the case. She made claims. She told stories. She framed experiences in a way that made her personal history relevant. And once you do that, you don't get to suddenly declare those topics off limits when questions get uncomfortable. You don't get to open the door and then scream harassment when someone walks through it. Her team also accuses Justin's lawyers of being disruptive, which is rich considering Blake's own attorneys have been repeatedly documented taking excessive breaks, stalling proceedings, interrupting answers, and throwing on the record tantrums when questioning doesn't go their way. This isn't an isolated incident. It's a pattern. Cry misconduct. Flood the judge with complaints. Distract from the fact that there's very little evidence supporting Blake's most dramatic claims. This isn't legal defense. It's courtroom theater. Meanwhile, Justin Baldoni's team stays focused. They ask questions. They document answers. They build a record. Blake's side, on the other hand, files letters complaining about tone, body language, and vibes. If laughter and sarcasm are enough to shake her legal strategy, then the truth is going to hit like a freight train, and this is only the beginning.